Armenia and Azerbaijan are fighting a bitter war in disputed Nagorno-Karabakh. With every passing day, the death toll is mounting, and so is the pressure to end this bloody war. Today, we have Ambassador Mr. Elchin Amirbayov, the assistant to first Vice President of Azerbaijan. Mr. Elchin, welcome to DainikBhaskar.com.
Yes, good morning, madam. Thank you for inviting me.
As we speak, what is the update from the front line?
Well, the frontline update is that since this morning, the Armenian armed forces continued shelling not only our military positions in two directions, in the northern and in the central, but also the residential areas in the settlements, in the towns which are along the borderline. And let me tell you that since the start of this latest war on 27th of September, if we count only civilian casualties from Azerbaijani side, we have already lost 92 people and 403 have been wounded. And among those who were killed are more than 10 children and lots of women. So the characteristics of this war this time was that since day number one, when when Armenia attacked the Azerbaijani positions, they were specifically targeting civilian objectives and civilian infrastructure. So that's why the death toll on our side is so big.
Mr. Elchin, Azerbaijan's position is that it is liberating its territory controlled by Armenia. As of now, how much area has Azerbaijan liberated?
Well, let me tell you just in figures, because I cannot tell you the exact percentage, but I will give you an idea. Since 1993, Nagorno-Karabakh and also 7 districts around it were under occupation of Armenia. So it was about 20% of the overall territory of Azerbaijan. And today we have like 4 districts out of 7 liberated. And there are certain parts inside Nagorno-Karabakh which also went back to Azerbaijani control. And as a result of this, this occupation at the time, around 1 million of Azerbaijanis have become IDPs, internally displaced persons, or refugees. So now that these territories have been liberated, hundreds of thousands of people will be able to go back to their homes. And this fact that the territories were under Armenian control were reflected in 4 resolutions of the United Nations Security Council, which were adopted back in 1993. And all of them demanded complete, unconditional, and immediate withdrawal of occupying Armenian forces from Azerbaijani territories. But unfortunately, all these years, these resolutions remained unimplemented. And when we saw that the Armenian side shuns away any opportunity to talk about peaceful resolution. And in addition to that, they have undertaken this military adventure and attacked our positions back in July, but also on the 27th of September. We told to ourselves that enough is enough, because there is no perspective of peaceful resolution. So we'll have to try to restore territorial integrity of Azerbaijan by our own means.
Mr. Elchin, if I'm not wrong, this war is in its 39th day today. What is Azerbaijan doing to stop this war? What efforts?
Well, actually, Azerbaijan supported every overture of peace since the start on 27th of September. Factually speaking, Azerbaijan agreed to humanitarian truce on 3 occasions. First one was brokered by Russia, second by France, and third by the United States. But unfortunately, each time, 5 minutes after these truces went into force, our positions again were shelled by artillery, and also we had casualties immediately among our military. So we said to ourselves that if the other side agrees to a ceasefire and then starts immediately firing at us, that means that they are not interested in stopping the hostilities, and they are not interested to pass to a peaceful stage of negotiations. And I think that what now we're trying to do, President of Azerbaijan yesterday once again announced his readiness again to stop immediately fighting. But in order to do that now, it would not just enough for us to have a simple word of Prime Minister of Armenia, because on 3 occasions he basically violated his promise. So he needs to say publicly, but it's not only going to stop the fire, but also that Armenia will be ready to implement resolutions of United Nations Security Council. That means that Armenia would be ready to withdraw its troops from all the remaining occupied territories of Azerbaijan, and that would lead us to resumption of peace talks. And that declaration should be done in the presence of mediators, United States, Russia, and France, because, I mean, they need to be sort of guarantors of this commitment by Armenia. But unfortunately, despite our calls to Armenia, the Prime Minister of Pashinyan, he does not actually respond to this claim. He told twice that he doesn't see any diplomatic solution to the problem and that he will fight with his forces till the end. Of
Mr.
course, with
Elchin,
this kind of
sorry to
attitude,
interrupt
it's
you. Is
difficult.
there any middle way? You are ready to compromise?
Well, I mean, the compromise that we can speak about right now is just we are ready, despite the fact that our armed forces are are now liberating more and more territories. We are ready to stop it. So that is our compromise. But the compromise on the Armenian side should be to announce openly that they abandon the idea to regain back those lost territories, and they will be ready to abide by international law. And international law suggests that their occupying forces must leave unconditionally all the occupied territories of Azerbaijan.
Okay, let me come to the basic question. Who started this war? I mean, who fired the first shot?
On the 27th of September, madam, between 5 and 6 o'clock in the morning, we received first signs about the shelling, artillery shelling of our positions in the northern part of Nagorno-Karabakh along the line of contact. And we had immediately 3 persons, civilian persons, killed. After that, we had also casualties among our military. And when we understood that it was not a sporadic fire which happens every now and then, we understood that it's a large-scale offensive because immediately in the southern part of the line of contact, similar attacks took place. So that's why we decided that this time around, Azerbaijan needs to show to Armenia that we are not going to tolerate any longer any attacks against innocent civilian population. And the same was the case in July, madam, when Armenia, at that point, they didn't attack the line of contact in the occupied territories. They attacked our international frontier with them. And that region of Tovuz, which was 200 kilometers away from the zone of contact, and we were wondering why would they attack us on that port. And then we understood because they wanted that Azerbaijan responded to them and attacks the territory of Armenia, and then they would claim that their security has been compromised and would appeal to
Mr.
Russia
Elchin,
to
there
intervene.
are allegations that Azerbaijan is using Syrian militants and mercenaries. What do you have to say on that? These are very
Well,
serious
actually, I would agree
allegations.
with you that these are pure allegations. I mean, this is unsubstantiated information. This is part of campaign on disinformation that Armenia has been waging since day number 1. We have asked all those who were accusing us in that to provide some factual evidence. Besides some photoshopped, fake stories, video footages, we didn't get any substantiated evidence. But on our side, we have shared this information with the mediator countries. There are Kurdish terrorists which are part of PKK, the recognized terrorist organization in many European countries. About 2,000 terrorists from PKK of Kurds are fighting on the side of Armenia. Moreover, they are having thousands of mercenaries who are of ethnic Armenian origin and coming to Armenia these last months from all over the world. You know that Armenian diaspora is everywhere. And that's why they are coming from remote places, as remote as Canada, for example. They are coming from France, they're coming from Germany, they're coming from many other countries. And they even don't hide it. They post on Facebook and on Twitter the videos that they are proud to join Armenia. But who are they? According to legal point of view, these are mercenaries because they are not citizens of Armenia. They are citizens of other countries. They are getting armed on the spot, and they go there just to kill Azerbaijani people. So that's why when someone is accusing Azerbaijan, they need to look in the mirror, and they look to see that all those countries are providing mercenaries to the Armenian side.
Also, Mr. Elchin, there are people who think that Nagorno-Karabakh war is about Islam and Christianity. What do you have to say to them?
Well, that is a very dangerous premise, madam, because I think that the religious card is now being abused by Armenia in order to get some sympathy in the Western world. And they try to portray this confrontation as a war between Christian Armenians and Muslim Azerbaijanis. But let me assure you that it has nothing to do with reality, because all those people who know a little bit about the history of this region, about the history of this conflict, including the mediating countries that I mentioned, they would attest that this is a purely territorial claim of Armenia towards Azerbaijan, which has dated for many decades. And that is nothing else. Because let me tell you, Azerbaijan is a multi-ethnic, multi-religious society. It's a very tolerant country where representatives of different religions and faiths are living in harmony together. You have never heard about any case of anti-Semitism or or any other forms of discrimination, because this is not something which we are known for. Azerbaijan is known as a natural platform for intercultural and interreligious dialogue, and we have hosted a big number of international fora and conferences with Council of Europe, with UNESCO, with the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations, in order to show that Azerbaijan is a model of intercultural coexistence. And that is the words which were used by Pope Francis, the head of the Catholic Church, when he visited in 2016 Azerbaijan. After he left the country, he said Azerbaijan may serve as an example of religious tolerance and interreligious dialogue. So we are proud about this, and that is why this premise, it has only one goal. Knowing now that Armenia is losing on the battleground, they are trying to mobilize the Western world, and the best way for them to do that, as they think, is to use religious card, but it has nothing to do with religion.
Actually, I have spoken to some Armenians who fear that if they lose Artsakh, there will be another genocide. What do you have to say on that?
Well, I don't know what is Artsakh or Stena Parket or different names that they have put on the places. Karabakh, madam, it's a word which has Turkish and Azerbaijani roots. It means black garden. Kara is black, garden is Bakh. That's why this is a historical Azerbaijani part of our statehood, of our history. So that's why we do not accept any new names that Armenians have invented. As to the threat to genocide, this is another, emotional string that they are trying to use, because Armenians, unfortunately, they have been used already to this, image of victims, eternal victims by everyone. But no one speaks that these Armenians have committed the act of genocide in 1992 against the Azerbaijani civilian population in the Nagorno-Karabakh town of Khojaly. I give you some just, sheer figures. 613 peaceful civilians, including children, women, elderly men, were massacred during one single night only because of their ethnic origin, only because they were Armenians. And according to the Convention on the Prevention of Genocide and the definition of genocide, this is exactly the case, because it was intentional killing of representatives of other ethnic origin. So these rumors about imminent genocide is nothing but false propaganda. Our president has already announced that the indigenous Armenian population in Nagorno-Karabakh are considered by us as our citizens. And we are ready to provide them, after the war is over, with all the rights that all the other population of Azerbaijan is enjoying. That's why there is no need and no ground to fear that Azerbaijan would be repeating the war crimes that Armenia committed in early 90s.
One thing more, Mr. Elchin, the Armenians say that your army is using cluster bombs and they claim there are proofs of that. We know that they are banned weapons. I want to know, is your army using cluster bombs?
Well, let me tell you one thing. Exactly 10 days ago, we took the diplomatic corps representatives accredited in Azerbaijan to a city of Barda, which was subject to a multiple rocket launcher attack. And as a result of that heinous attack against civilian population, 25 people were killed during this rocket attack and the ballistic missile attack. And the Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch that you are, of course, aware of, they have confirmed later on that those missiles and rockets used by Armenia, they contained cluster munitions. And the aim of those cluster munitions was to elevate the number of casualties, because, cluster munitions are little bomblets which are, put on the rocket in order that when it explodes, it hits as many people as possible. Not only cluster munitions were used, but yesterday we provided proofs to mediators that the Armenian side was using white phosphorus munitions. And white phosphorus munitions is an incendiary weapon which is used to burn out houses and other infrastructure. So my response to you is that Azerbaijan never targeted civilian population. Azerbaijan always was targeting military objectives, the places from where they were killing our people. And Armenian side, and it was again reiterated by NGOs like Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch, Armenia was and is still using cluster munitions.
Your Ministry of Defense posts videos of drone attacks on Armenian military every day. How important are these weapons for you, and do you think Azerbaijan is justified in using these lethal weapons?
Well, let me tell you, every weapon is lethal, madam. I think that if you kill someone with artillery fire or with a machine gun is no less lethal than any other type of weapons. This is first point. Second point, we are now talking about a modern, well-equipped, 100,000 people strong, highly motivated Azerbaijani armed forces, whose aim is to restore territorial integrity of Azerbaijan, which was violated for 28 years. And of course, high precision weapons is part of our weaponry arsenal. And why we are using these drones? Because we don't want, first of all, we want to lessen the casualties among our own military. And secondly, these drones are not used against civilian infrastructure. They are used against the tanks, against the artillery pieces, against the multiple rocket launchers, all those lethal, as you said, weapons which are aimed at peaceful Azerbaijani population and at our military people. So that's why, of course, it is justified, because the cause that we are pursuing is just. It's just to restore historical justice and to bring back Azerbaijani control to 20% of territory which was under illegal Armenian occupation since 1992.
Okay, Mr. Elchin, are you in any way personally impacted by the war? I mean, do you know someone who has lost his life or is fighting at the front?
Yes, of course. I have lots of people who are acquaintances of mine and friends who either themselves or their friends or their brothers or their fathers are now fighting. Because for us, it's a patriotic war, madam. It is not something else than a mobilized effort by the whole nation who has rallied around our flag in order to undo the wrong. And we are. That's why all those, all ethnic groups, Azerbaijanis, Russians, Jews, Georgians, all the other representatives of ethnic groups living in Azerbaijan, they are proudly carrying out this task of restoring justice, because it has been too long that this humiliatory occupation lasted. And that is why I think that, of course, we're losing people, and these are martyrs who are giving their lives for the freedom and independence of their nation.
Mr. Elchin, I have seen pictures from Nagorno-Karabakh. These are heartbreaking. Very young people losing their lives in such tragic way. 18-year-olds, 20-year-olds dying. And you must have also seen such pictures. Do you think that this war, this destruction must stop now?
Well, I fully subscribe that it must stop, madam. And if someone from your agency could have traveled to this side of the war, I mean, they would have been able to see lots of other pictures, but on the Azerbaijani victims. You know, because I assisted, I participated in the funerals of a 7-year-old girl who was playing with her toys in the yard and who was hit by the rocket fire, launched from Armenia. And I can give you many other examples. As I mentioned, since the beginning of this war, 92 innocent civilians were killed on our side, twice as much as the civilians that the Armenian side lost. Every single human life is precious. And of course, we want to stop this. But in order to stop the war, it takes two parties to agree that, the best way to proceed to sort out the differences is around the negotiating table. Unfortunately, Armenian government, which is now cornered in a way, they are desperate and they are hopeless. And when you are hopeless, basically, this very difficult feeling that you have to overcome. You have to admit that this military adventure of yours has failed, and because they are now very helpless, because they try to call everyone to help. They are trying to involve third countries to fight on their part. And this helplessness, it induces hopelessness. And history attests that loss of hope and not loss of lives is what decides the outcome of war. So I think that the loss of hope is already there. And unfortunately, the Armenian prime minister does not find enough courage to admit that the war is gone. And he has to stop this, senseless massacring, his own people, but also other people like Azerbaijanis. We also don't want to lose, young conscripts who are 18, 19, 20 years old, because they could have quite a different future. But this is a war which was imposed on Azerbaijan, and we cannot just sit and wait another 30 years before Armenia will decide to withdraw its troops from our territories. I mean, no one is ready to give a gift out of its sovereign land. And we are living in the 21st century where the primacy of international law should be abided by. Unfortunately, this was not the case. And when the insult was added to injury, in our case by different provocations that they carried out against us since the arrival to power of Prime Minister Pashinyan, we said that enough is enough and we have to take our own fate in our own hands. And what we are doing, madam, it's very important to mention. What we are doing today is happening in the sovereign territory of Azerbaijan. We have never trespassed the territory of Armenia. What we are doing is recognized territory of Azerbaijan, Nagorno-Karabakh, and 7 districts around it, which were illegally under occupation for all these years. They are integral and inseparable part of the Republic of Azerbaijan. And it is on these conditions that Azerbaijan was accepted in the United Nations. That's why the whole world, including India and other countries, they recognize the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Azerbaijan over these territories.
Absolutely, I completely agree that every single life is crucial. I want to know that what role is female of your country are playing in this war?
Well, of course, females, they are not directly maybe involved in the warfare, but female, who are they? They are mothers, they are spouses, they are daughters of those who are fighting for independence and for the liberty of our nation. Of course, they are a very important component of this society. They are now helping to the extent that they can also by praying, praying for their loved ones so that they come back from this war safe and sound. And of course, we appreciate this, and we want them to. We want that their prayers come true.
Okay, Mr. Elchin, let's come to Turkey. What role is Turkey playing in Azerbaijan war?
Turkey is the closest ally, strategic partner, and the brotherly nation of Azerbaijan. This is the country with which we have the closest possible relations, diplomatic, political, economic. And of course, it is true that when we are so close to each other that we say that it's one big nation and two states. And we are proud of this relationship because Turkey was the only country which stood by us when the Azerbaijani territory was violated and the integrity was violated. Today's role of Turkey in this particular conflict is unlimited political and diplomatic support. There can be no talk whatsoever about any military involvement of Turkey, despite all the Armenian propaganda that we are hearing a lot. And obviously, it's also present in India. That's why I can assure you, and I said that to other Indian channels where I was interviewed, that all these, allegations that Turkey is providing, military support, the Turkish military are fighting instead of Azerbaijanis, or we're using their jet planes, or they're transferring someone from outside. These are all rumors and nothing more, and there is no worse thing in the world than the phrase "they say." When someone is saying something, it has to prove. If you don't prove, that means that you're lying. That's why I think that Turkey's role is quite important from the point of view of geopolitical balance, because when Armenia tries to get the support of third parties from on its side, from its military allies, like Russia, like the other members on the organization on the Collective Security Treaty, Azerbaijan has Turkey by its side. And I think the presence of Turkey by Azerbaijan's side is a sort of deterrent. It's a sort of stabilizing factor. Because if it had not been for Turkey's unequivocal support to Azerbaijan, we would have been isolated in this war.
Mr. Elchin, what do you expect from Russia and President Putin?
Russia is a big neighbor of Azerbaijan. It is also our very good and strategic partner. Azerbaijan and Russia have excellent bilateral relations in all fields, including political, economic, and other fields. Besides, Russia is one of the major mediators in this conflict. It is one of the three so-called co-chairmen of the OSCE Minsk group. Well, it's a way to describe, the one of the three mediators. So Russia is doing its best in order to try to put an end to these hostilities. As I told you earlier, Russia was at the origin of the first attempt to install a humanitarian ceasefire in early October, on the 10th of October. Ministers of foreign affairs of Azerbaijan, Armenia, and Russia have spent more than 10 hours talking to each other, trying to come up with an outcome. Unfortunately, the Moscow arrangement was very shortly after, violated by Armenia, and war resumed. Nevertheless, ever since, Russia is trying to, through direct calls by Mr. Putin to President of Azerbaijan and Prime Minister of Armenia, to appeal to them so that they abide by this, humanitarian ceasefire which was agreed upon. But as I said, it takes two to tango. Azerbaijan is ready to do its part, but we need to be sure that Armenia is not playing with us, and it is not using the ceasefire just to replenish its, military arsenal, and that it's not using this pause in order to regroup its forces and to relaunch attack. Unfortunately, they are not saying anything about their need to withdraw from our territories. Until we hear that as a commitment from Armenian Prime Minister, there is no reason for us to believe that this time around, they are not cheating us again.
Let's come to India. India has always been neutral in other countries' conflicts. What do you expect from India?
Well, India is a huge country. It's the biggest democracy in the world. We appreciate very much the fact that India sticks throughout its, it's not participation, but in this particular conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan, the position of India has always been to abide by norms and principles of international law. And we know how important to countries like India is the principle of respect for territorial integrity and sovereignty. And that is why that is our expectation, that India will continue its neutral position. And I wouldn't even call it neutral, because when you are supporting international law, you are supporting Azerbaijan's position, because we are trying to restore the primacy of international law by restoring our territorial integrity. And second point, which I wanted to mention, Azerbaijan and India are members of a non-aligned movement. And we know how dear to India is NAM, because India is one of the founding members of non-aligned movement. And the basic principles which lie at in the charter of this organization are Bandung principles. And Bandung principles are very clear. They were adopted back in 1955. Respect for each other's sovereignty, respect for territorial integrity, inviolability of internationally recognized borders, non-interference in internal affairs of each other. So I think that we are on the same page with India on this, and that's why the role of India is very important. Even more so that next year, I think India is becoming a non-permanent member of the United Nations Security Council. The same Security Council which has adopted 4 resolutions in 1993, which unanimously adopted and demand immediate, unconditional, and complete withdrawal of occupational forces of Armenia from Azerbaijani territories.
Mr. Elchin, how Indians living in your country contributing to war efforts?
Well, I don't know, because I know that there is a sizable Indian community in Azerbaijan who is mostly involved in commercial activities. Unfortunately, this latest, pandemic situation has touched all the sides of our life. It has, and we expect that when we're back to normalcy, that these contacts will be restored. We also know that Azerbaijan has become a new touristic destination for Indians, because they want to discover this country, which is not that far away, but is not that much known. And it is vice versa. It's also true, because more and more Azerbaijanis were choosing India, as a destination to discover. And I think that this human-to-human relations between our two countries is also a very important element in strengthening our bilateral ties. And we do hope that this war will soon be over. The historical justice will be restored, and we will go back to normal life, which also includes strengthening and deepening relations with countries like India.
Oh, for same, sir. Let me come to Kashmir now. Some part of our land in Kashmir is controlled by Pakistan. Will Azerbaijan support India if it goes on to retake Pakistan-controlled Kashmir?
Well, let me tell you one thing, that I would not go into detail much, because what I want to say, Azerbaijan stays on the same position. We believe that international law and all the decisions of the United Nations and all the international organizations should be abided for. And we hope that both countries will be able to come to a solution which is based on this international law and which will take into account the interests of both sides.
Well, thank you, Mr. Elchin, for connecting with us. We pray that the dialogues prevail and this war ends soon.
Thank you so much for your time, for your interest, and hope that what you say will become true very soon.
Have a good day, sir. Have a good day.
You too. Thank you. Thank you.